All right, we're going to start going over fluency, and the directions are to click and drag the numbers to the white boxes to solve the given problems. So our numbers are over here, and our white boxes are listed below the problems. So our first problem is, what is the sum of 85 and 22 hundredths and 43 and 5 tenths? So sum is our key word in this problem, and sum means the answer to an addition problem. So we are going to be adding these two numbers. The most important thing to remember when we are adding decimals is to make sure that we are lining not only up our digits with each other, but we're lining up our decimal point. So we can't forget about this decimal point that I just placed, because that's one of the most important things in this problem. So once I have my first number written down, I am now going to place my decimal point for my second number because I want to make sure that I lined them up. I next want to look to see what number is in front of the decimal point, and that's a 3. So I'm going to place a 3 in front of my second decimal point that I had placed. And I'm going to make sure that it's lined up with the same digit and the same place value. And then now I'm going to place the 4 in front of the 3. And then I'm going to place the 5 because the 5 becomes after the decimal point. So I'm going to put my 5 after it. Now if you notice, all my numbers are lined up with each other. And I have an open space. That open space we have to keep open. Or we can use what we call a filler, a space filler, which is 0. So I like putting a 0 there so I know when I begin to add that I add straight down, and that 0 is going to be added to that too. But before I begin to start adding, I want to make sure I drop my decimal like it's hot. So I'm going to drop my decimal point down, and now I'm going to begin adding. So 2 plus 0 is 2. 2 plus 5 is 7. 5 plus 3 is 8. And then 8 plus 4 is 12. So I'm going to start off with my 2, and then I'm going to put down my 1. So that is the first problem. The second problem is find the difference between 21 and 37 hundredths and 10 and 95 hundredths. Difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. So I'm going to be subtracting in this problem. The most important thing to remember when subtracting is the same rule as when we're adding. You need to line up your digits and your decimal points with each number. So I'm going to start off by replacing down my first number that I will be subtracting. And then I'm going to now put my minus sign because I am subtracting, and now I'm going to place my 10 and 95 hundredths down. So before I place my digits, I'm going to place my decimal point because I want to make sure I line that up, and then I'm going to fill in the place values and making sure they line up with the above place values. So the 5 is going to line up with the 7, the 9 is going to line up with the 3, the 0 is going to line up with the 1, and the 1 is going to line up with the 2. So now I'm going to begin subtracting. When I subtract, it's the same thing. I want to make sure I drop my decimal point down. So I drop my decimal point down, and now I begin to subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2, which I'll drag my 2, make sure it lines up. 3 minus 9, I am unable to do that, so I need to take away from that 1. So I'm going to place a 0 over that 1, because if I take away from 1, I go down 1 and that becomes a 0. And then that 3 is going to become a 13. So we get 13 minus 9, which is 4. 0 minus 0 is 0. And 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay? So now if you needed those problems repeated, these little microphones and if you hit play, it will read that problem for you. All right? So that's fluency for today.